Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's painting is a very simple landscape. I'm still a little bit on the cloud binge, so today's painting are going to be dreamy clouds and a little bit of wildflowers in the foreground. I'm using the Holbein acrylic wash, which is my new favorite medium. I love the matte finish and the rich colors. So the first thing I want to do is paint the background. This is my favorite shade of purple or favorite shade of blue. What I do is I mix purple and blue together with a bit of white. I'm using a simple flat white brush to paint the background, and then after the first layer I leave it to dry, and once it's dried I go again with the second layer using the same colors. And then I move the brush in a back and forth motion from left to right to get this kind of very plain solid background. So this painting is actually very similar to the one that I've done last week, but this is just a much more simplified version and with a different medium. But anyway, the steps are pretty similar. I use a wool brush and I dip it into a darker shade of purple or darker shade of blue. I just mix purple and blue but less white. And then I move the brush in circular motions to get the shape of the cloud. Once the first layer is done, I add highlights using titanium white on the top part of the clouds, and I continue to kind of just blend it in by using the same circular motion. Now because this acrylic wash kind of dries out very fast, so you may need to add a bit of water to ease the blending process. And then at the bottom I continue to add a darker shade of blue, and then I just swirl the brush around in that circular motion, and then I continue to add white highlight on top of the cloud, and then continue to blend it until it looks nice and fluffy. To achieve this effect, I find that the wool brush works best compared to all the other brushes. It's so much easier to blend with this, and then I also want to add a bit of pale purple right below the white to give it this kind of nice dreamy purple glow. Once we're done with the clouds, I want to draw a electrical cable in the background. I'm using a very dark shade of blue with just a little bit of black so that the black wouldn't stand out too much in this very light kind of painting. I kind of like to add this electrical wires or electrical cables in the sky just to kind of fill up the space a little bit and to add a touch of urbanism in the painting. I don't want the lines to be too distracting, as if it's a bit too dark and too thick it could be very messy. I just want it to be something subtle in the background, so I'm drawing very faint and very thin lines. To achieve this effect, I find that it's easiest to use an angular brush, and then you just kind of lightly glide the tip of it across the canvas, and with a little bit more water as well. I love lights, and especially in a cool tone painting, I find that just by adding a very small spot of warm colors can really do or really brighten up the whole painting. So over here I'm just kind of adding like a lamppost light. I'm using orange yellow with a little bit of lemon yellow, and then I kind of drag out the paint with a fine tip brush. Once that is done, I want to add some wildflowers or some tall grass in the foreground. So first I start by drawing out the main grass first. So this one has a more distinctive shape and it's kind of well placed out throughout the whole foreground. So I want them tall, and then I'm using a dark shade of green. By doing so, I get to map out the placement of the grass and kind of the direction of where I want each strand to go. Like some are taller here, some are leaning towards this side, and I just kind of add a bit more mean or thicker blades of grass, and then I can add all the other filler grass in the background to fill up the space easier. By filler grass, it's just so much easier to draw them. They're kind of like with less shape because they're just background grass. So I just use the angular brush and I kind of just drag it down. Next, I want to add the wildflowers. So I draw the stem, and it looks a little bit different from the blades of grass, and then on the top of the stem I add these little buds of white flowers. And then I continue to draw a few more delicate stems to add the wildflowers on top. I actually don't really know the name of these flowers, but you do see it quite often amongst the tall wild grass. The flower itself is actually quite dainty, not too flashy. So I'm just using the tip of the brush and I just add like little tiny petals of white. Next, I'm using a lighter shade of green and I continue to add very thin blades of grass. Not too much, but just a little bit and more near the light. And then after that, I take a darker shade of green with black, and just at the bottom, I flick the brush up to fill up that space in between. This final step here is my favorite part, peeling off the tape, and we are finished. I hope you liked this painting and you find the tutorial useful. Thank you so much for watching and see you again in the next video. Goodbye.